Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doc. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, first of all, as I was looking at the lectures, really it was a full range of eclectic topics. There was something even on fortune telling. Can you tell me my fortune? So, I'd like everybody to be relaxed. First of all, I said it's been, the schedules for the last 2 weeks have been toxic for me, but I took time out to put a few things on the slides. Studies are not really completed yet. What I'll do this afternoon will be just to show you what the oceans are. And I'm sure you know all of these, many of these things already, just to emphasize the importance of the oceans for us. And then I'll show you some disputes concerning the oceans, because we're all talking about peace. It's supposed to be Youth for Peace ambassadors, and necessarily conflicts will always arise because of the need for stronger nations to get more and more areas of sea, because they have many uses for it. So do we. And then next is, I'll just list up some topics that you may want to expound upon, ways of how we can, what steps we can do to use the oceans as a medium for peace. As I said earlier on this morning, it's really now on the youth to carry on the challenges for us. We tried our best during our time. Some went well, some did not. But again, it's the youth who should be now well aware of what's happening, so that you can exert effort to contribute in your small, in your own little way towards using the oceans as a medium for peace and understanding. So it's going to be a short talk. There are the oceans, a whole lot of them. 71% of all of the land area of the world, outside the area of the world is water. And of that, 71%, 95% of that, 71% is actually salt water, which has, as you know, salt has many minerals, and it is the spice of life. That's why they said we should always have salt, but not too much, because you're going to get sick too much salt. Here on the slides, you can see the different uses. Here it's for energy. Those are oil rigs. For recreation, you have diving, beaches. For trade, you have all those dark areas show the routes of trade, of how goods move from one continent, one island to another. Of course, food, fishing. Wind turbines are supposed to be wind, but you will notice that in many countries, especially in the North Sea and in the Black Sea, all of the wind turbines are out in the ocean, because that's where most of the wind is, and that's where it's always steady. To have a wind turbine, efficient, you must have continuous wind moving. And of course, you can put that on top of mountains, but it will be easier to maintain it if they're at sea, because they're all in one area. You don't need to climb or bring up your heavy vehicles to mountains to maintain all these wind turbines. That's the reason why we have wind turbines there, but actually the prime mover of the turbine is wind, not water, but it is on the water. Fisheries, what else? Salt. There's still a lot of salt. Energy and metals. There's a lot of metals in our under our seas. You've heard of manganese modules that are just waiting to be tapped with a whole lot of minerals that can be used in our industries. What I have here are the, how many are these? There are many terms. There are 5 oceans, they're saying 6 oceans, and of course, you will hear from even Sinbad the sailor that he has sailed through the 7 seas. Which are those? So there's a slight confusion on many things. Let me discuss the 5 major oceans. Oops. Okay. Oh, well, before I do that, let me talk about, here are some figures. I'm going to give you the slides later on. Here are some figures based on our researches that offshore gas and oil, meaning those that are on oil rigs, over the last decade, it has increased from 28,000 million liters to the slides are not correct. But there's been a very large increase of the extraction of oil and gas from our waters, and if you believe the indigenous persons, if you have talked to them, they will tell you that the more oil that they extract from below the sea, then the level of the sea level will keep on going down, because the oil is supposed to be the buffer between the Earth's core and the seafloor. So if you keep on extracting and extracting fuel and gas, the seafloor will go lower and lower, and that is the warning of our indigenous tribes with respect to too much oil extraction. And where are we? Okay, offshore gas. There. My figures here show that in the 1980s, about 30 years ago, we were just extracting 13,500 million barrels per day. And there's been an increase by 37%. We're now extracting at the rate of 18,600 million barrels per day. So just think about it. A lot of oil is being extracted because of our need to gobble up oil for our vehicles, for our electricity, and other things that we need. And that's the reason why there's a move for us to move to more sustainable sources of energy. The sea is home to over 97% of all life. So it's not only the fish that you see, it's the aquatic plants and the smaller aquatic life, even the microbiological life that you see. It's 97% of all life. They are in the seas. And of course, this is of interest to us. I think you know that already. 90% of all trade are carried by ships. There are 51,000 ships to all around the world. And these 51,000 ships are manned by 1.2 million seafarers. And of course, of that 1.2 million seafarers, about 30% are Filipinos. So it's really a big thing for us. And you will see that they're all, in any foreign flag vessel, you'll invariably see 1 or 2 Filipinos aboard. Some, even the full crew is Filipino. The value of our ocean resources, according to studies and uses, goes to about $7 trillion per year. That's what we get from our oceans. And the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN predicts that the world fishery production in 2010 will range between 107 to 144 million tons, because that's a major source of protein. Especially for Asians, we prefer to eat fish as opposed to meat. It's more healthy. Where do you get it? You get it from the oceans and from the water. Of course, there's still deposits in the ocean floor. There's a lot of untapped deposits in the ocean floor, as I said earlier, that manganese modules and all that. There's also methane. There's a lot of methane underwater that can be tapped, which we can use for our for generation of energy. So, even work. The seas provide work for about 36 million people every year. Just work alone. So it's not only those running the ships, the fishermen, those working near the sea, working at the docks and all that. It's about 36 million. So look at all the importance of these oceans. As I said, I'll give you a copy of this for you to, so that you'll have time to take a look at it and see the importance of the seas around us. Because of that, because of the huge values of the seas, because of the need for countries to sort of protect themselves, there's always a conflict in terms of getting islands and land in order for countries to establish their own boundaries. I'm just talking of Asia alone. There are other issues like the Falkland Islands, where the United Kingdom and Argentina actually went to war. There are some issues in the Black Sea, and some issues in the Baltic Seas as well. Of course, after Russia occupied Crimea, then you have one less conflict because it's been taken away by the Russians already. So anyway, here are the issues in the Asian region. First, we have Japan versus China on the disputed islands in Senkaku. There's still a big quarrel there. The Chinese are saying that historically it's been theirs, in the same manner that they're saying that there's a lot of the whole of South China Sea is the whole of South China Sea belongs to China because it's called South China Sea. Of course, nobody believes that, but that's what they're saying. Then, of course, there's an issue between South Korea and China, also within near their areas here. There's an issue between East China Sea, between China, Japan, and Korea as well, all three of them, in a certain island there. And of course, there's an issue between Japan and Russia near Vladivostok. So those are conflicts, and the biggest one, they're saying it could trigger World War III. We don't believe that, but the Americans are saying that. Because China declared sometime in 2004, they drew red lines like this, 10 dotted lines, and said that whole area is theirs. There is no latitude, no longitude, no marker, nothing. It's just, they drew it on the map. Now when they drew that on the map, immediately all of the other islands are affected. Because with the promulgation of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, all the countries, in order to have some order in the sea, all the countries are authorized a 200-mile exclusive economic zone. It does not mean that that zone, that the countries are entitled to that zone. It just means that in that zone, that country has the exclusive right to exploit and develop the maritime resources in that area. Okay. And anybody else, since they have the exclusive right, that means that nobody else is allowed to do it except those countries that have the 200-mile economic zone. And so you will see these drawings here. These are the lines of the 200 nautical miles of each country. Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, and Brunei. So they have their own exclusive economic zones, and then suddenly, on top of all those zones, China came up with this drawing and said, all this is ours. And of course, the Philippines said no. If you are talking of history, we also have maps dating back to the 1600s, even maps drawn by the Italians and the Spanish, that this belonged to the Philippines. Anyway, in order for us to really ensure or to have a third party decide on what to do, we went to the arbitral tribunal of the United Nations. And you've heard of it, the decision was that China is not authorized to put this up. The Philippines and the other countries have the right to exploit the exclusive economic zone. China put up airstrips, and out of small rocks they built a huge fortress. Out of a lagoon is a shallow area that's surrounded by rocks. Out of a lagoon they built a 3-kilometer airstrip. So all of that, according to the UN Arbitral Council, said no, it's not authorized. So the US said, hey, you're not authorized to do that, so you better stop that. What did the Philippines do? We just said, relax, take it easy, no problem. We did this in an Asian way. And so we're not flaunting the ruling of the tribunal in order for China to save face. And indeed it worked, because instead of the US pushing the Philippines to keep on complaining so that the US can come in, the Philippines did not complain. We said, hey, we'll try to work this out in a legal way. We'll try to work this out in an Asian way. And so the other day, Filipino fishing boats were able to fish already in that island where the Chinese stationed their Coast Guard ships. So while people are saying that our president has a bad mouth and he has a very acidic tongue, he was actually able to get the fishermen back in, and we were actually able to at least delay, if not stop, the impending world war, where China and the US would be using the Philippines and other countries as pawns. So there, those are the issues these are the disputes that necessarily come in, and issues that should be understood, so that we will know what to do about it. Okay, back to the oceans. So I think you know already the largest ocean is the Pacific Ocean. It's between Asia and the Americas. It covers 63 million square kilometers. You see that? Yeah, 63 million square kilometers, and that covers this whole area here and this whole area on the other side. It's the largest ocean. This is where the deepest part of the world is as well. It's in the Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench. The next largest is the Atlantic Ocean. with 41 million square miles, and of course that between Europe, Africa, and the Americas. The next is the Indian Ocean with 28 million square miles. This one. Indian Ocean used to go straight up to here until the 2000 when they said they would put up what is known as the Southern Ocean in the Antarctica. So the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian, there are no boundaries of course, but the Antarctic Ocean and the Indian Ocean abuts the Southern Ocean somewhere here. Anyway, the Indian Ocean is 28 million square miles. Then the Arctic Ocean, that's here on top, that's 5 million square miles. So it's all around the Arctic Circle. And the, as I said, the Southern Ocean is about 7 million square miles. Okay, any questions here? These oceans have small seas. You have and gulfs that are not part of the ocean, but because they're enclosed, they are given different names. For instance, the South China Sea is here, so you can see it's enclosed by the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, and in the north by China. So that's, they call that the sea. There's also a Java Sea here somewhere, and many other seas. So when you hear of 7 seas, where did that come from? That came from the trade routes in the early days. That was the trade route from Europe to Americas to Asia, and that's why they called it the 7 seas. Any questions so far? I think you've already seen the importance of the oceans and the need for us to do something about it, especially when there are territorial disputes. But aside from the disputes, you'll also see the big issues. Pollution. You have seen a lot of pollution. Those of you who have been close to the shorelines, mostly plastics. And plastics do not only entangle the propellers of ships moving in it, plastics also kill fish. Because when they get inside the plastic bags, then that kills them. Okay. There's also acidification of the ocean. It's become too acidic, causing the dying of corals. And I think you know that corals are very important to marine life. That's where the fish seek shelter. That's where they get their food. That's where the plankton stays. And because of acidification, then many corals die. For those corals that are developing, corals are actually skeletons. But there's sea life, marine life that keeps on developing and adding up so that the corals will sort of grow. But they're actually already skeletons. So you put a stop to that because it's been too acidic. And of course, one thing that's not been that has not been included here is the temperature. The temperature of the oceans has been going up. And that's the reason why there are many, many storms and many more storms with high winds, with stronger winds that come because the temperature of the water feeds the wind. The more the temperature, the ocean temperature gets hot, then the stronger the wind will come. So that's the reason for that. Okay, so I guess for everyone, pollution is the one that kills much of our marine life, and I think there's and it also changes the climate, and that's why part of that is the climate change policy that is trying to be ratified now so that other countries will follow. And here in pollution, this is where a lot of us, because all of the pollution in the water comes from the land. So, as stated by our guest speaker earlier today, just throwing plastic out of your car window, that plastic is going to get carried by the rainwater. That rainwater is going to the river. That river is going to the sea, and that's where the plastic will stay. In Manila Bay, you have gone through it by ferry yesterday. You may have noticed that there's an island of floating plastic, because the tide, as you know, comes in, but it only comes in for 5 or 6 hours depending on the moon. So it comes in, and this plastic is there, just floating. So they are grouped together, then they start coming in. They will not reach the shore because it will be low tide again. The tide will ebb. And so we have an island of plastic that's moving back and forth in Manila Bay, just outside. And every effort is being made to haul out these plastics. But that's really a lot, and it's taking a lot of time and a lot of effort for us to actually remove all of that. For the cadets, we always go out to the shorelines and collect the plastic. We collect tons and tons of garbage from our shorelines. We're also responsible we were supposed to be responsible for cleaning up Corregidor Island as well. We go to Corregidor in the morning, pick up 5-10 tons of garbage, board the ship coming back here. As soon as we turn our back, there's plastic again. So that's how it goes. But really, all of us have a responsibility to reduce pollution that will go to our waters, or pollution anywhere, because pollution ruins our environment. This is going to be the environment of the youth. This is going to be the environment of our children. And if we do not take care of it, then everybody will be wearing gas masks. Okay, this may be long, but anyway, this is a recap of what I feel could be major topics for you when you make your researches, when you make your plans. Try to see what you can do about some of this. First, I put in the peaceful means first, because as we said earlier, oceans should be a medium for peace. And that's the reason why I put the peaceful means first. But really, what we're saying is because of the conflicts that arise from the utilization of marine resources and the sovereignty of the oceans and the use of the land, of the islands, there are many conflicts, and as a result of that, the resolution of this conflict should be through peaceful means. And the best way to do it through peaceful means, aside from talking to one another, is to be able to use legal procedures, because everybody is supposed to respect the rule of law. That is universal. Again, I cannot tell you how this can be done. Exploit the respective oceans through friendly manner. In fishing alone, there's a lot of elbowing from fishing boats from different countries. Usually have places, have areas where fishing is really good. They know where they are, where the fish are. Many large fishing boats have their own canneries. They have a helicopter. They have fish finders. They have high-tech equipment. They will know where the fish are. And so with the other companies, because they also have helicopters, they also have fish finders, and they will all converge in that limited area. Everybody trying to fish, and everybody trying to elbow one another. So it's not friendly anymore. It's really commercial. But again, we should exert effort to find ways and means of ensuring that everybody has a share without having to resort to violent means. And one of the suggestions from our from our senior Associate Justice of the Supreme Court was to convert all of the Spratly Island, these were a lot of islands and fighting and confrontation being made in the South China Sea or West Philippine Sea, is to convert it into a marine park. There's even a suggestion, why don't you make it a condominium, meaning those who already have land. I mean, nobody owns the sea, but those who have already put up people, put up buildings, facilities in those islands, okay, it's yours. But we also have ours, so don't mind us. We are just living in one condominium, sharing the same area, and perhaps we'll be able to live with each other peacefully. So that's one way of having a sort of win-win situation in the dispute. Next is, how do we join hands? We should find ways and means to join hands to preserve the oceans. So that's going to be a good topic for anyone. As I said, you can start off small. You can start off from your specific locality, from your specific place, how you can contribute towards preserving our oceans. Of course, involve the youth and the individuals and youth to support the government's conservation measures. Some of those measures are not really very well spelled out yet. We do have integrated coastal management projects that are happening, which we can do together. Neighboring countries, we can work together to develop newer methods and newer techniques in integrated coastal resource management. And there's a UN project that supports this as well. Of course, one area where everybody forgets about sovereignty, everybody forgets about fighting, is during calamities. During the 2004 tsunami, during the Japanese, the Fukushima tsunami, during the Typhoon Yolanda disaster calamity, everybody contributed, everybody helped. So it's one way of getting people together. It's not saying that we like calamities, it's saying that taking advantage of calamities for us to be able to resolve our differences by working together, saving other people's lives, helping other people who have no homes at all, who have nothing to live on, his 2 sons or 2 daughters rotting beside him, dead. Somebody needs to bury him. Just helping out. So, because by having a calamity, then you go into the deepest values of human nature, and you tend to forget animosities and rivalries, and just help because you see people dying. Okay? And so there are big projects and big exercises of navies in this area, where we have disaster response actions. And of course, our MAAP will have a contribution one of these days. The Philippine Red Cross has purchased a ship, and Red Cross has requested MAAP to operate the ship, so that in any calamity, the Red Cross will be there. They don't need to borrow ships from the Navy or from the Coast Guard or from other government agencies. The Red Cross will have their own ships manned by MAAP cadets and MAAP officers, so that wherever the calamity is, the Red Cross is going to fill it up with all relief goods and materials and generators and water and other things that are needed. They can go direct to where the typhoon is hit, and from there give aid right away. Again, this is still in cooperation, and we're saying that because of the cooperation that is developed amongst neighboring countries, we can bring confidence and goodwill and hopefully have a more peaceful world. And finally, giving importance to our oceans and seas, using the sea as a means to generate understanding, to generate cooperation, to generate cooperative work, especially from the youth. Using the ocean as a medium for that, I think it will go a long way in attaining world peace, in attaining better use of our resources and our oceans. So with that, I end my short talk. From here, you can get some ideas on how you will develop, how you can develop your projects for this workshop. Those are, to my mind, some good topics that you can get from. I'm not saying that you focus specifically word for word on that topic. Just get a subtopic and try to see how you can connect to that, so that you can have a better output. Okay. So, do you have any questions? Yes, Doctor.
Especially in the intelligent countries.
Yes.
Indonesia.
Use the mic.
Asia, in the
Thank you. This is very critical as I have ever been observing the countries in archipelagic countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, China, and also Philippines. I don't know how to decide, especially whenever it is the problem here is going to be discussed in the world agreement such as United Nations and so on. How to decide that this kind of area belong to this country and that country?
Yeah.
Because I have experience in Indonesia, especially we have lost 2 islands, Likitan and another one, I forgot Sipadan.
Near Singapore?
Yeah.
In Malaysia?
Yeah, between Malaysia and Indonesia. In fact, if you look at the geographical, both of them are very close to Indonesia. But after being in the kind of agreement, and then the United States,
United Nations.
Yeah, and then it was decided that both of these 2 islands belong to Malaysia.
Yes, yes.
I don't know how to decide that.
Okay.
That is, thank you.
That's a good question, but there's a procedure, there's a protocol for that. The useful protocol is, let's see, which island can I show? For instance, using this model, it's in the middle. For instance, this island, supposing it was claimed by China, but there's also a claim from South Korea and Japan, then what they would do would be to divide the distance, get the middle part, and anything that from the middle part belongs to that country, anything that's nearer belongs, yes. So you use distance. However, it's not only distance, it is the population, the people living in that area. For instance, in the Philippines, I think you know that you have the Miangas Island and Las Palmas Island, which is very close to Davao. But you have Indonesians there. So it belongs to Indonesia. Even if it's very close to Davao. What do you call that? Miangas, right? Las Palmas Island. There's an island here. There's an island here, very near Sulawesi, where it's far, but everybody there speaking Indonesian, bahasa Indonesia. So even if it's close to the Philippines said, it's okay, that's yours. And even if it's inside, it was inside the Treaty of Paris limits. That island, it's right on the corner. It's right on the corner. But because of agreement, because of our good cooperation and our brotherhood, we say, okay, it's yours. Okay. Yes. So there are two ways of doing it. If not, if they're really technical about it, you put the line in the middle. Everything north of that belongs to him. Everything south of that belongs to me. Yeah. But there's a procedure for that. Yes, Doctor.
Thank you, sir. In fact, your presentation was so mesmerizing. I am so motivated that I want to go inside the sea and see that life too. One question which every time troubles my mind, whenever I come to Philippines and I see the map, and I was seeing it on my phone right now, is that Philippines has so many islands.
Yes, 7,000.
Yes, and I keep on asking people here also, how easy or difficult it is for the Navy to really protect all these islands?
Oh, it's very difficult, with great difficulty and with fewer ships. So it's really very difficult to maintain because we are an archipelago. By an archipelago, we draw lines. We draw lines around the southernmost. Let's see, I use this again as an example. If this one was the whole country, the country, and that they're considered an archipelago, they can draw lines of the outermost boundary to this one, and to that one, and from this boundary here to this one, that boundary there, and that enclosure of those legs, that encloses the archipelago into one entity. This is opposed to having each island have a 12-mile territorial sea, because that would be difficult. If you have the 12-mile here, another 12-mile there, it does not meet. So there's an international water in between. But as an archipelago, we must be able to maintain the integrity of all the islands for us to have better protection. Imagine Indonesia has 14,000 islands, 17,000 islands, and they have a long stretch, and they have to draw this. They have to draw these lines to make sure that they're all in one enclosure, imaginary enclosure, and all of that, everything inside that line is territory, is internal waters. It's considered a river. Anything inside that enclosed line here, for instance, that span of water, if there's a line that says this is ours, everything here is called internal waters, like a river. Nobody can come in. And then, of course, having had that, having said that, it's therefore the task of the Navy and the local government and the Coast Guard. Everybody's enjoying to. In fact, in the Philippines, we have a law. We have a local government law that says 15 kilometers away from your shoreline of your municipality, you can control in coordination with the Coast Guard.
It will be very expensive affair to manage.
It is very expensive. That's why we have decentralized the local government units to the provinces and to the towns for them to be able to handle it because they know what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
We have a question from China.
Yes.
Josephine is Tanzanian doctor working in China. Josephine, go ahead. Josephine? Josephine, I can't hear you. Josephine?
What was it? Can you get it?
Josephine, she typed it. She said, recently I've noticed increased diplomatic relations with Indian Ocean countries from China. Between China
and the Indian Ocean.
And Indian Ocean countries.
Yes.
Is this a war strategy to have control over the Indian Ocean or secure bases in the Indian Ocean for China?
For China?
Josephine, we can hear you. Go ahead.
We have an Indian here with us. I'm sure they wouldn't like that, but and actually India is starting to project its influence also toward the China Sea, South China Sea. But again, that would be aggravating matters. My opinion is that it's just a matter of talking, of negotiating, and seeing what can be done for them to cooperate, to be able to use the whatever resources that they need in order for them to both coexist. It's really a matter of coexistence.
And in fact, she was talking really about Chinese expansion into the Indian Ocean.
I did not talk about it.
You know, she was saying, she was saying, do you think China is also expanding into the Indian Ocean?
I think
or
not.
focusing really on the east, on the China
I think not. I'm sure the Indians will not allow it.
Yeah. The Indians will not allow it. Okay.
Yeah.
And,
but you see, there's really, I mean, there's a lot of seeds and there's a lot of opportunities. We know that China has only a very small opening to the sea that's somewhere here on the eastern parts, because again they're limited by South Korea, they're limited by Japan, they're limited by, well, of course Taiwan is, we're not sure if they're in or out, and then they're limited here as well by Vietnam. So, but the limit is not really close. It's 200 nautical miles. And so I know that the main reason for the expansion would be for defense. But then again, if matters can be, using our youth, if matters can be arranged peacefully, why not?
I think Josephine's also saying they're investing a lot in port infrastructure, and I think she's from Tanzania, so maybe in Africa.
Yes.
Chinese investment in Africa is big, and
yes.
yeah.
Yes, we have heard of the huge investments of China into Africa. It's really a way of being able to. There's a lot of oil in Africa as well, and China needs oil, and she will exert every effort to get all that energy in order to power her industries. So I guess that's they're going. The investments are really part of influencing the different countries to cooperate.
Thank you. Sukaran in Turkey, you had would you like to say your question or comment?
I don't have enough knowledge about this topic, but it is very interesting because we don't have any border with ocean. But I want to know, or I want to learn what kind of policy will be better to involve ethical approach. And this policy now, they have a policy, I understood that. This policy is enough, and is there a big ethical issue? Which is the big ethical issue? Is up to our lecturer, Admiral Santos. Yes, Santos, what do you think about it?
What's the biggest ethical issue?
The most important ethical issue.
Ethical issue.
Ethical issue. She's saying this is.
What is the most important ethical issue in the oceans?
Well, really, insofar as ethics is concerned, it's finding out what's right and wrong. That can vary. There are different levels of ethics, utilitarian ethics, or whatever. I don't like to go into that. But I think the biggest ethical issue is if somebody already owns or is already in the area, and then a stronger power would like to come in and bully and grab other countries' resources, then that's unethical. That's really where everything starts. trying to get resources that are allocated to the others. And as I said, if that country that has the resources cannot fully exploit them, there's nothing stopping them from talking to one another and being able to exploit these resources jointly. So it's really coexistence. And we do that even in our daily lives. If we can do things ourselves, we can ask somebody stronger to help us. We don't need to buy to do that. But if we're able to talk cordially to one another and do things jointly in a united way, as long as we have if we have common interests, we need to find the common denominator. I keep telling the cadets that finding the least common denominator is very important in algebra. It's because when you transform it back to life, you try to find out what's common amongst the two of you, and based on that common quality, you start to develop and you'll be able to get to higher. If you get the least common denominator of two fractions, you come up with a bigger number.
So in fact, there's a couple of things you said. One is that because it's rather revolutionary to let people who are inhabiting an area leave them alone in peace.
Yes.
Because for most of history, battleship diplomacy was correct.
Yes.
That if you had a power, you could colonize somebody's ocean, sea, and land and people.
That has happened to all of us.
And that's happened
here.
to everyone. Philippines has been in the middle.
Yeah.
And but now Indonesia too. Every country except maybe
India.
Well, India's have been colonized for 500 years by the British Empire. It's more British than Britain sometimes. But it's, in a sense, it's interesting for that modern thinking,
yes,
that we should be of independence and sovereignty. Sukram was also mentioning, for example, do you teach in the academy about engineering ethics, other forms of technical ethics for the people doing different training? We saw the simulations, exercise, engineering skills, technical skills.
We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what sorts of things do you teach?
Ethics there. Essentially, here at MAAP, we develop an honor system. The cadets will not cheat, they will not steal, they will not lie, and they will not allow anybody to do so in their presence. So hopefully, as they develop that the sense of values, the sense of the values of honesty, keeping their word, and trying to work in an ethical manner. Hopefully, they do that in their career as well.
I'm sure they do. They look very ethical. But maybe they have some questions for the Admiral. You're welcome to ask questions in the forum.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, good afternoon.
We really appreciate your wonderful explanation about the ocean's advantages and not disadvantages, but the risks that they have. And it has always been a dream for me. I never dreamt of being a seafarer, but it has always been a dream to be in MAAP. And thankfully the day arrived. And I was really glad that we were able to experience the simulator.
Yeah.
We really salute the cadets for having or for sacrificing a portion of their life in the seas, because we have just experienced 5 minutes in the simulator, but we are already seasick, we are all dizzy. But imagine all those seafarers who invest their time, hours, days, months inside the true thing. Yes, sir. So my question is about if we overly exploit our oceans, which is happening nowadays. How can our needs be supplied in the near future? Until when will the seas or the oceans be sustainable to feed us or to supply our demands?
I don't have all the research on that yet, but you see, the seas also has limited resources. Everything is finite on this earth. So as of now, you can see even if we are 3/4 covered with water, many of those waters are dying because even the Great Barrier Reef in Australia, it had the largest, most beautiful reefs in the world. But then, because of temperature change and because of the crown of thorns, then the corals are dying. When the corals die, there's no fish. Let me tell you a story. I really didn't believe all this stuff when I was younger. But when I was in the Coast Guard, part of our task was anti-illegal fishing. And I guess it's common in most developing countries that the fastest way to fish is to use dynamite. You blow the thing up, and then all the fish start coming up, and you just gather them, and you have something to sell. Okay? Not knowing that when you use dynamite, you also destroy the corals that grow 1 inch for every 5 years. So, in 10 years, it grows 2 inches, and you blow it in a second. So, and you let it grow up again. So when I was in the Coast Guard, there was one resort owner who was really having a single one-man crusade against glass fishing, against dynamite fishing, and he asked me if I could visit his house. So I went to his house in one of the islands in my district. And I said, I was still the captain then, I said, "Captain, I'll teach you how to scuba dive. Do you want?" I said, "Okay, why not?" I really wanted to do that, so he taught me, gave me lessons in scuba diving. And then said, "Okay, let's go." So we went down on the boat. When I opened my eyes, when I was able to stabilize, I opened my eyes, it was all gray. The floor was all gray. When I was a kid, my father's a mining engineer, so we went to many islands in mines, and my father would bring the whole family. So most of the mines need a seaport where you can load the ore. So we are always near the beach and the sea. And when I was a kid, every time we pass through the shallow waters, you can see the different colors without even diving. You can look how clear the water is. You can see green, yellow, red of the corals. It's beautiful. When I went scuba diving for the first time in my life, I was already a lot older then, and I could still remember the colors that I could see on the underwater, on the boat, and now diving and seeing gray. And that immediately told me I have to do something about this. Because you see, all around you, it's all gray. That means all the corals are dead. You can pick up a dead coral. See? And why is it so? Because there's been a lot of dynamite fishing there. And so that has become my crusade also in my area to stop dynamite fishing. So I cannot tell you what the limit is, but there are already a lot of the degradation of the corals itself. The degradation of corals alone. It's been reduced to 5% already. To 5%, not by 5%. It's now 5% of the total coral growth. And the Philippines, Indonesia, and Malaysia were supposed to be in the coral triangle. It's not a triangle anymore. It's getting smaller and smaller. And having smaller and smaller corals will mean less and less fish. And of course, then there will be more quarrels about fishing. There will be more quarrels about the use of the underwater areas. So, did that answer your question? Yes. I cannot give you a limit, but even oil has limits. Even offshore oil has limits. There are some oils that run dry. Now, because of the low prices of oil worldwide, thankfully, all the oil drilling has stopped because oil drilling is expensive. The price of oil now is about $25 per barrel, and they spend, if you go offshore, you have to spend about $30 per barrel just to extract oil from the water. And so a lot of oil companies have shut down their oil rigs, which is good. At least the oil will be preserved. They're now getting more and more from the shale in sand, from the shale oil from the continental U.S. and Canada, and hopefully be able to extract oil from there. But again, still very expensive. So one of these days, I decided in our last meeting yesterday in London, they said, this is temporary. This oil price slump is temporary. They are going to come back with a vengeance. So let's all be prepared for that.
Thank you so much,
I
sir.
hope that answered your question.
Can I be allowed, sir, to have follow-up questions?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
Sir, if that is the case of the exploitation of the seas, or how does our seas and oceans recuperate from the over-exploitation?
Yes. Miraculously, by design, the sea is able to replenish because there are so many minerals in the water. It's the minerals in the water that exude substances that allow it to replenish. And when even in going back to that area where I came from with the Coast Guard, because I had a very strict patrol of dynamite fishing, even if I did a lot of patrols, I know I could not do it. I was spending a lot of gasoline going around and running. What I did was I talked to some of the owners of resorts and told them that it will be more lucrative for them if they put up a dive resort, scuba diving resort. They only have beach resorts. People will go there by day. There's a shack. They bring food, picnic, go to the beach, then go back, then go home. I was talking to some of the other bigger areas there. I told them, why don't you put a dive resort? Because there's more rental. They started developing it. There were still few corals there, but growing already. And I told them why don't you watch it? Because if you watch the group of corals there, let's say for instance, there's a certain, they call it the cathedral, there's a cross, I don't know who put it there, but it has developed a lot of incrustation in corals, and there's many fish going around. So divers like to go there, they feed the fish with their hands. So I said, why don't you make sure that nobody blasts fish in that area? So that's yours. Take care of it. And that's what I did. And right now, that place is the whole place is a dive resort.
Thank you so much.
Yes. The other question?
Thank you for the opportunity. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. So I'm also from Indonesia, and we both have the same similarity of the island, something like that. And first question, I would like to follow up Chris' question. According to Mr. Eduardo Santos, that there are so many people who harvest the fish using of dynamites.
Yeah.
How about the people who consume the fish through the dynamics itself? Does it endanger the health of the people who consume it?
They can, yeah. Because what they do is when you use dynamite, you just break the internals. Okay. You cannot sell it fresh because people will know there's a difference. The eyes are red, bloodshot eyes, as you drank last night. The eyes are red, and this is soft because the stomach has been ruptured by the blast. What they do is they slice it and they dry it. So if it's dried fish, you know dried fish? Yes. It's always both. Nobody knows the difference whether it's dynamite, killed by dynamite or anything. They're still able to sell it. So they still make money.
Okay, thank you, Mr. And my second question is, we as an Indonesian people have been fortunate enough that in 2014, President Mr. Joko Widodo appointed Miss Susi Puji Astuti
Yes, very
as
strong.
the minister. And
She kills everybody also. Just like our president.
and she made a controversial decision, and that invite many pros and cons opinions for that. And what do you think about her decision making, such as blew off so many ships?
Sink all the boats.
Yes,
Yeah.
so many ships.
It really depends on the techniques. it really depends on the perception of the power of the individual who was controlled. See, Madam Tri, during the tsunami, she really helped a lot. She spent a lot of money to help the people from Aceh and from Sumatra, those that got hit, and she used her money for that. And she used that to, because of that, because of the help that she has given, she has gained a lot of popularity. And having the popularity, she's going around and listening to the problems of the people. And even in the Philippines, when you go to the Philippines, you go to the coastal areas in Indonesia, everybody is saying there's no fish to catch. Fish going farther and farther away. But our boats are small. We cannot go away, we can't go far away. So, problem, no food. Okay? And so, it depends on the perception of the individual. For Minister T, she felt that really there's less and less fish because there are so many Filipinos fishing in Japanese waters, in Indonesian waters, but not only us. But also Chinese. There's a lot of Chinese, Vietnamese, everybody. Yeah. And one of our measures was to sink them, ordering the Navy to sink them. That's similar to our president, who feels that drugs is a very bad menace, is going to kill society. So he says, kill all those drug lords. See? But in the end, they try to soften up because you cannot exchange human lives for more fish. Neither can you exchange human life for saying that there's less drugs. Of course, for drugs it's different because once you're into drugs, you're almost dead anyway. That's the reasoning. That's the reasoning of our president. If you're into drugs, you're dead anyway. You might as well kill him. That is their way of thinking. When you talk about ethics, then again you start differentiating what kind of ethics are you talking about. Because if my ethics is to save the whole country or to save all of the youth from drugs, then I'm doing something ethical by killing the drug pusher or by killing the drug lord who's distributing it. So it can easily be, there's always very clear lines against right and wrong, especially when it comes to lives. And to the youth, I must say that really lives are the most important, whether they are in drugs, whether they are in illegal fishing, life is still alive. So if they use that, I guess that will save a lot of problems. Yes, Congo.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for a good presentation. I really like one of your first statements whereby you say that you manage to do what you can, and it is our time to try and work hard to fix what we can. But I would like you to think a little bit for 5 minutes as you were 20, some of us. And what would your preference ideas to resolve ocean problem? I have 2 suggestions. Would you go for the preservation of the oceans or the agreement? Why am I talking about preservation? Because despite this conflict, we are also having problem with climate change, which is affecting the oceans. So therefore, we are having some double problems to deal with here. Because at the end of the day, these developing countries, they are the ones who are polluting the environment. They are the ones which are making the glass to melt. They are the ones which are making the sea level rise. And they are creating more problem on the oceans. And as we know, the oceans always underground, and somehow even as African countries are affected.
Yes.
In the sense that, in the sense that most of our countries, we are not as rich as from Qatar, who can do the purification of seawater to drink. And at the end of the day, some coastal countries in Africa, they end up not having enough water to drink because even the ocean water is highly polluted. Now, my question is like, if you would think as somebody who is 23 years old as I am, would you go for the preservation of the oceans, whereby we are saying that let's give tax to these developing countries because they are using the oceans, then they should pay tax or indemnize like those countries which are affected. Or you will go for agreement, let's say the way Philippines deals with China, let's say let's agree on oceans, benefits and somehow. What would you choose?
Now, if you ask me if I were younger, I would still go for the preservation. I would still go for the preservation of our environment, because when you preserve the environment, you help a lot of people. You know, the Philippines, and really the Philippines is bearing the brunt of all this global warming. We have not as many industries as other countries, most developed countries. We don't bring up acid smoke, sulfuric smoke into the air. We don't have many of that. We still have some coal plants to power our needs because coal is cheapest, but it's not really too much. But the other industrialized countries are creating all that pollution that raises the level of the temperature level of the seas. But as I said earlier, when the seawater's temperature increases, then any weather disturbance will have stronger winds, because the heat of the water will fuel the wind. And so when they want to get hit, but we never had any part of this. So there must be some responsibility somewhere, and I guess the responsibility is when the developing countries start formulating policies on environmental protection and all that. But really, if you ask us, we have nothing to do with it. They do that on their own. But even the developed countries do not exert effort to reduce the pollution that they cause because of their many industries. So mine would be continue on with preserving our environment, conserving our environment for the future to help our children and children.
So you agree with me that maybe we should come up with taxes for these developing countries who are using more the sea? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, sir, and of course, good afternoon, everyone. You said there are 51,000 ships around the world.
Yeah, commercial.
Only commercial ships.
Yes, carrying cargo.
Ships contribute also to the waste in the sea.
Yes.
So I wonder how and where do you dispose the waste from the ships?
Okay. We have a very strong, very strict marine pollution laws. And these engineers, the present here in the back, they study that. Okay, because you know it's very easy. In an engine, the engine has oil leaks. All the leaking oil, leaking fuel, leaking water will go into what is known as the bilge. That's the bottom part of the ship. That's where all the bilge goes. So the engineers are the ones in charge of that. Usually they're supposed to wait till they get to port and transfer the bilge and the oily water to a receiving station. But that's very tedious, very hard. So they have oily water separators. You pass the fluid there, that's mixture of oil and water, and out will come from there is water that you can use for your toilets on the ship. Then the residue will be left. It will be a bit carbonized, but you can just turn it over to a reception facility in the piers. But by force of habit or by laziness, the other engineers would just put in they call it magic pipe. Put the pipe in the bilge, and then when the ship is out already in the open water, they pump it up. But out in the open water, this is already oily water, so it's not really that damaging to the environment because the oceans are very big. But many of them do it before entering port. So that means entering Manila Bay, for instance, they start doing their magic pipe thing, and so you see a lot of pollution. That's why we have a lot of what is known as red tide that kills the shellfish. Kills the shellfish. That's why many of our shellfish here in the bay, oysters, crabs, they are not really edible. There are times when the government will declare don't eat mussels or clams from certain areas, especially here in Bataan, because of red tide.
Is there a government regulation?
There is. There's a government. It's international law. The government regulation is the one on land, because much of the pollution also comes from the factories on land. They pump out all their waste material, goes to the river brings it out to the sea, pollutes the sea. Yes, they are. That's the reason why we have integrated coastal management projects also. So that we can watch those, ensure that reduce the pollution coming from the factories. Even if you look at Pasig River, that's all factories up to Laguna Bay, and all of them dump their waste into the river.
Good afternoon, sir. I have two questions. So my first question is, how has the approach of the previous administration affected the culture or the trade between, specifically the maritime trade between China and the Philippines? And my second question is about the Muroami fishing, because it's traditional yet it's so destructive to the environment, wherein they send kids to destroy the coral. So dynamite fishing, it's destructive, but Muroami, it's the traditional way they fish. So I'm wondering how you approach that problem.
Okay, let me answer the Muroami first. The Muroami is a way of fishing where there are kids, 9 to 10 years old, teenagers. They're thin, they're colored brown, their hair is blonde already from the seawater. What is their task? They sleep in hammocks all around. You will see Muroami because from afar, using binoculars, you can see already that the boat is full of small boys. Okay? What do the small boys do? Because they are better at staying longer underwater. They dive underwater, and they have this tin pot or noise-making devices to scare the fish towards the net of the fishing boat. So that's called Muroami. It's traditional. It's banned now. It has been banned for the last 20-25 years already. And every effort is being made to catch all of those who are still using this, because there are many young boys who actually die. They are overworked. They are told to dive and dive and dive, and they eat very little. So they get weak. They cannot stay long down. If they cannot stay for long, they're directed to jump again and go into the water and keep on this noise-making activities. So many of them die, and nobody knows. Even the parents don't know what happened. So that's been banned. The first question was about the
previous administration.
Okay. Previous administration. Okay.
The Kenyan administration is more vigilant in the talks in China. It was very vigilant and very public about disputes.
Yes.
And always saying we will do this and this, and in contrast to Vietnam, they always had this conflict with China, but they decided to keep it away from media. But the previous administration always talks to the media about this disputes. How was it affected?
Well, at the outset, our trade with China is not really that big. Okay? But with that effort of making a lot of noise, then the small trade actually went away. And of course, on top of that, before the previous administration, we have contracts for railway. Of course, there's one contract that got hit in the media, the backbone of communications backbone, BTE. There was some corruption things there. But anyway, the railways, there were already projects. All of that were stopped with the previous government because it was said to be corrupt. So that was a slap to the other country, to China. And of course, because of that, there's been less and less trade. And because of our posturing in media, then they also hardened their stance. If you will recall, there was a Navy ship trying to catch Chinese fishermen getting sea mollusks, these are endangered species, inside the Scarborough Reef. So when the Navy came in and tried to apprehend them, towing them out, Chinese came in and stopped them. So both of them stayed there, stalemate, standoff, nobody left, until a storm came. When the storm came, they said, okay, we all agree, we all pull out, come back after the storm. They didn't pull out. We pulled out. When we went back, they were there already. They put a line on the mouth of the reef, and we could not get in anymore. So, and they hardened their stance. They never left. Up to now, they're still there, but they have apparently, they're not apparently bothering our fishermen. I didn't like the idea of media saying that the Chinese allowed us. That's supposed to be ours. I would rather the media have said that fishermen, Filipino fishermen are now getting fish again, going back to their old fishing grounds. But saying that China allowed, I think it's not acceptable because we never agreed that it was theirs. Hope that answered your question. Anything else? Okay, so I hope that, let's go back, you're supposed to do something oh, there, okay. I'd like to remind everyone, these are general topics. You can develop smaller topics from this. At least this gives you ideas on what you will develop in this workshop. So, having said that, I hope that I have tickled your mind enough for you to be able to do something, do a project proposal. There are many ways of using the seas as a medium for peace and understanding. These are just suggestions, and as I said, these are even general. You can really go to the details. Okay, so thank you very much, and I hope that you have a good